Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now it's time to take a look at the news stories making the headlines around the globe. The Nigerian government has confirmed the disengagement of 25 ambassadors and heads of missions. A spokesperson of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, Ferdinand Wonye, confirmed that the affected persons had earlier been informed of the plan to disengage them at the end of 2019. But they had insisted that the sack was sudden. The envoys had pleaded for 2 to 3 months extension in order to complete some diplomatic formalities before their disengagement, but they were reminded of the 10-year extension given to them by President Buhari in 2018. The ambassadors were directed to hand over to the most senior officers in their respective embassies and missions. Thoughts on this, Dr. Abati?
Well, ambassadors who are in charge of our missions in different parts of the world, they hold those positions at the pleasure of the president, who is the chief diplomat of the country. And it's clearly within the prerogative of the president of Nigeria, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to recall or to deploy ambassadors. And that is why, when they present the agreement, they are doing so on behalf, of the president of the country that is sending them on that assignment. What I find curious here is that, the ambassadors are insisting that they should be given 3 more months to complete certain diplomatic formalities. And if indeed it is true that they have been notified as far back as 2018, and they requested an extension, which was granted, and then now at the end of 2019, by November, they had also been notified. They are also insisting that, they would still like to stay on for additional 3 months. I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is right to ask them to say, look, we've been given enough extension. The president has been magnanimous enough. This is a new term, right, of 4 years.
Yes.
The president may decide, to redeploy diplomats or to appoint new ones. He has a political IOU to pay,
he does.
Then, of course, there are 2 sides to it. You have on one side the career ambassadors, and then you have non-career ambassadors who are sent out, basically, in my view, for political patronage reasons. The indication is not given as to who these 25 ambassadors are. Are they career ambassadors, or are they, non-career ambassadors who are really directly political appointees? That distinction is not made. But if they are non-career ambassadors, then, of course, they have no option in the matter.
Exactly.
If they are career ambassadors, they can be redeployed, they can be recalled to the ministry, and if they are due for retirement, then they will proceed on retirement. But my suspicion is that these are non-career ambassadors who are resisting being recalled.
Yes.
But they clearly do not have an option in the matter. However,
they don't.
there is this, position about many people, particularly staff, present and former staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that, look, government should try to strike a balance between career ambassadors who go on postings and non-career ambassadors, because the career ambassadors, sometimes feel discriminated against for political reasons. And they feel that, the diplomatic missions have been increasingly politicized, through the appointment of politicians who may not really have the experience and the expertise. The second point, of course, is that at a point, government talked about rationalizing our missions because of the cost of maintaining them. But I think it's important to do a proper audit and to make sure that these missions are properly funded, because those are the departments that represent us abroad. And then in terms of efficiency, we would like to see our missions abroad doing a lot more, to defend the interest of Nigerians wherever they may find themselves in the world.
Absolutely. If it couldn't be done in a year, how possible could it be done in 3 months? So I agree with what you said completely. And still in Nigeria, the governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kaide Fayemi, has said the joint security outfit, Amotekun, initiated by the 6 governors in the zone, will commence work on the 9th of January. In his New Year message, Dr. Fayemi said the outfit will complement the efforts of the regular security agencies. The governor urged community leaders and groups not to allow themselves to be used to cause unnecessary tension that could trigger crisis in the state. He said the 2020 budget bears clear testimony to his deliberate request at, providing good road networks and an enabling environment for business concerns.
Well, the Southwest governors, the 6 governors of the Southwest, they've been on this matter since June.
Yeah.
In June, they had 2 meetings with President Muhammadu Buhari, requesting that they be allowed to also provide security for their own people. And this was being done under the auspices of a group called the Dawn Commission, which is the development of the Western Nigeria, Development Agenda for Western Nigeria Commission, which is like, you know, a form of the Odua group, except that this is not into business. This is an ideas-driven body. And with the escalation of security threats in Western Nigeria, the governors decided to come together to find a solution to, you know, share ideas. You recall at the time, Mrs. Funke Olakunre, the daughter of Ruben Fashionroti, the Afenifere leader, was attacked and killed. We also had cases of professors at the Obafemi Awolowo University being abducted. We had a case of some 5 ministers of the Redeemed Church being attacked within Yoruba territory, and so many other cases like that. So the governors had to come up with a strategy. And one of the strategies they came up with is having a joint task force to ensure the protection of lives and property in the Southwest. And then in July, they set up that joint task force. And in August, they met with the National Security Advisor to get his buy-in. And the National Security Advisor also supported the idea, consistent with the position of the government that, look, you know, there should be collaboration at all levels. And the president has said that on many occasions. Now, my only concern is about, you know, the politics of protection in Nigeria. Increasingly, because of the failure of the police, you find, you know, the emergence of all these vigilante groups. In the Northeast, Borno State, before now, had the Civilian Joint Task Force, which, you know, which joined the official, you know, mechanism for checking insurgency in the south, in the northeastern part of the country. Before now, we had heard of the Bakassi Boys. The Anambra Vigilante Group, which transformed into the Bakassi Boys, and which was very active between 1998 and the early 2000s. And then, of course, you have in the Niger Delta region, the Igbesu Boys. And in the Southwest, before now, you had the Odua People's Congress. So each time the police or the federal government fails in addressing security issues, then you'll find other people creating their own police. In parts of the north, you have the ISBA. In Kaduna State, you have the Vigilante Group. But the fear, as I said, is in the politicization of protection and the resort to self-help, and the fear about likely abuse, so that these groups coming up do not degenerate into ethnic militias, as we found, for example, with the case of OPC at the time, which moved from being a security outfit to become involved, mired in the politics of Nigeria and governance. Now, with regard to this proposed Amotekun, the Southwest, you know, Defense Forces, what will be there are questions. What will be the operational command? What will it be like? You know, is there an enabling law? Are the governors pushing for an enabling law? They already said that they would contribute vehicles. Some of them are supposed, each state is supposed to contribute 10 vehicles and to provide funding, communication equipment. But who is going to control all of that? What is going to be the relationship between this regional task force, you know, and the police and the military? Okay, and then would this Amotekun task force, will it have the power to arrest and prosecute? Will it carry arms and procure arms? So these are details that we do not know yet, you know, within the public domain. But what we can see is that it's a reflection of the move for state police, you know, by another name, because you cannot blame the people of the Southwest saying they will create an Odua outfit to protect their people.
Which is essential. They have to protect their people, because at the end of the day, just like you said, it's just like the vigilante groups. But my worry is these people, what's the limit to their power? At what point are they going too far? Is this going to bring back the concept of, you know, taking laws into your hands, jungle justice? That's my worry with groups like this. How much power are they going to give to them, you know? That's just my only worry. And I think even the fact that the state government is doing this should send a message clearly to the federal government that, look, since you have decided to ignore us, we are taking this situation into our own hands and we're doing something about this.
Well, in many of these states across the country, virtually every state has a vigilante group already. What the Southwest governors are trying to do is to create a regional thing. But as I said, those details about the extent of the powers, the operational command, and all of that is something that will need to be worked out. And then ensuring that, you know, this task force does not become an ethnic militia, and it does not become like the Nigeria police. They've chosen a name that is very symbolic, Amotekun. It means leopard, like the panther, like the cougar in South America, you know, and it's a very strong symbolism. The leopard is a predatory animal, you know, very private and very strong.
And very fast.
And very, very agile.
So I'm guessing they are going to be reporting, I mean, after the police, they're going to come next after the police. So they will most likely report to the police and...
Well, we don't know those details yet.
They wouldn't fight, you know, for...
But whatever happens, I think they must be made to wear uniform.
Yes.
Because if they are going to patrol the forest, they are going to patrol the highways, and they are going to work with the police, it's important that the people of the Southwest, they know who they are dealing with.
Exactly.
You know, if there are going to be hunters involved, even those hunters should wear uniform so that we do not have, you know, some kind of persons on the roads, and we create more confusion, even while trying to help the people.
And of course, to make sure people do not take advantage of the fact that these people are available, and then people start posing to be one of them because they are not wearing uniform. So you have people maybe doing stop and search, collecting money.
You're right.
You know, and people just assume that they are, you know, part of the group. Well, right about now, we're going to head out to a very short break, but do stay with us. We still have some more news making the rounds from around the world. We'll be right back. You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now, moving on to some more news around the world, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will seek immunity from corruption charges. This may likely delay any trial until after elections billed for March in 2020, when he hopes to have a majority coalition that would shield him from prosecution. Mr. Netanyahu was indicted last month on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust after failing to assemble a governing majority following a back-to-back election in 2019.
Well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has had this issue of, you know, corruption charges and the threat of criminal proceedings. In April, his party, the Likud, could not get a governing majority and could not even form a coalition. Another election was held, even that same year. Again, they couldn't form, you know, a majority in parliament. And now another election has been scheduled for March 2nd, 2020. And the Israelis are looking forward to that. But, you know, in the last election, it was very clear to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the biggest problem that he faced was this allegation of corruption, breach of trust, and abuse of office against him. So now the law allows members of the Knesset, including the Prime Minister, to go, you know, to the parliament to seek immunity from, you know, criminal proceedings. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's main point in a document he sent to the Knesset late last night was that, look, what he's facing is a field court-martial, which is intended to mislead the people, and that this was not in the national interest. Of course, the Blue and White Party, which is led by Ben Gantz and other members of the opposition, have kicked, saying that Netanyahu is not interested in any national interest. He's simply interested in his own political interest. And this is all about Benjamin Netanyahu rather than Israel. However, there is no House committee in place. What the law says is that a House committee will look at the proposal by the person seeking immunity. But since the April election and the political deadlock that was sustained throughout 2019, there has been no House committee in place, which means that, look, there may be no committee formed before the March 2 election. But this is how it works. If a House committee is set up, the House committee will determine whether to approve the request for immunity or not. If it approves it, then it goes to the Committee of All, that's to the main Knesset, to the main parliament, which has 120 members, and then it will be voted upon. Now, if that immunity is granted, then it is granted. But if it is not granted, then it means the Prime Minister does not have to leave office. It doesn't mean that he will be removed. What it simply means, if it is not approved, is that the criminal proceedings will continue. And even if the proceedings continue, the Prime Minister remains in office. If at the end of the day he is convicted, he still has the option of going on appeal. And that appeal could go on for so many years. So there's no immediate threat of Benjamin Netanyahu losing his position. But I think that, the main point is that he has taken this move to protect himself. And there are 4 basic grounds on which you can seek immunity. On the grounds of freedom of expression, on the grounds of, prosecutors intimidating you, on the grounds of the national interest, on the grounds of double jeopardy.
But this is for elected officers?
Yeah, for members of Knesset. They run a parliamentary system, and the Prime Minister, and he as Prime Minister is taking this option. But March 2 election will be a deciding moment for Israel.
It will be.
Will the Likud party be able to get a governing majority? Or, the impasse, the deadlock that we witnessed in 2019 will continue. That's where we are on the issue of Israel at this moment.
Well, I guess we'll see how things play out. Right now, we are heading over to the world of sports, and we have Aaron Akerejala joining us now to tell us what's going on over there. Hello, Aaron.
Yes.
Hello, Aaron.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Yes, I should say Happy New Year to you. I haven't seen this year, okay? Quite a lot has been going on in the world of sport. Always an ever-revolving door. I will start it off here in Nigeria. And let's actually tell you that a lot has been going on, and one man has been in the center, almost like in the eye of the storm for quite a while right now, talking about the coach of the Super Eagles, Janet Raw. And let's say the Super Eagles former captain, Henry Wosu, has commended the Nigeria Football Federation President Amaju Pinnick for his recent declaration that Janet Raw must leave in Nigeria if he desires to remain the coach of the national team. We also advised the federation to do away with the German if he refused to accept the condition, warning that the federation to avoid allowing sentiments to rule on the issue. We also noted that Janet Raw's continuous absence from the country has affected the home-based players' desire to play for the senior national team. The former Golden Eagles coach wondered why Raw should not be keen in living in Nigeria, even when the federation promised to provide all he needs to be comfortable in the country. And Janet Raw's contracts will be coming to an end in June, and there's been talks about his renewal. Several eggheads have been saying...
Eggheads?
Yes, actually, that's what they call them. They have been saying that he should not be given the contract renewal, that he hasn't put up a spectacular job ever since taking over as a Super Eagles coach back in 2016. And now, this particular one, I feel differently. I feel differently about that. But this particular issue about him not living in the country... That
in itself is the exact bone of contention. You manage a club in a country. Why are you not in the same location?
The question is, Doctor, let's get to hear from you first of all.
The question is that, when you sign a contract to deliver services, the place of work should be defined.
Exactly.
In that particular contract. Was there negligence on the part of our Nigerian officials who negotiated the contract with him in 2016? If there was negligence or omission, that should not be repeated this time around. Because the same Janet Raw, if he was training a club in Europe, he will be glad to live in the country because that is the international best practice.
Yes.
You cannot train the national team of Nigeria by remote control because it's not just him being the coach for the Super Eagles. It's also for him to help develop football in Nigeria. So whatever has happened from 2016 to 2020 is an aberration. As for the renewal of his contract, it's not just about taking up residence in Nigeria. It's also about an assessment of his performance. The truth of the matter is that in the last 4 years, Nigeria has not put up a good showing in any major championship. That is the Super Eagles.
Yeah.
FIFA ranks us 31, right? We're 31.
Which is the best in a decade, Father.
Yeah, but there was a time we were ranked 5th.
That was back in 1994.
In 1994. So I think, a hands-on coach could help correct the situation. And let us tell Gernot Rohr, whatever his fears may be, because there may be people who say, oh, maybe security issues and all of that. Oftentimes those fears are exaggerated.
Exactly.
We have had coaches in this country who lived here, Otto Gloria, Manfred Horner, John Bonfrey.
Yes.
And
in
fact, one of them liked Nigeria so much, let them tell Rohr, that he took a wife.
Yes,
was he from Akwa Ibom?
Yes.
And even after his contract expired, he refused to leave Nigeria.
He's still in Nigeria as we speak. We speak. But now.
Exactly, and it also goes to show passion. If you're going to be the head of a team, how much do you love that team? How much are you willing to sacrifice for the team? Because if you are not willing to sacrifice so much for that team, you really can't give your best. He might be able to take us to the level of, going back to the 5th or maybe the 10th, but we aren't there because there isn't that level of attention, that level of focus being given to the team.
And I've tried to look at this from every single angle, and I understand, I share your sentiments clearly. But when you look at the setup of the
Nigerian wife to him.
They've told him
keep him grounded.
That will keep him grounded.
You'll be shocked, the doctor, that they've offered him a Nigerian wife, and that's still up in the air. But when you look at the way he's set up his team, and when you look at the way he's gone about his business, 95% of the nucleus of the Super Eagles are made up of foreign-based players. Okay. So if 95% are made up of foreign-based players, people have a problem with that. But to an extent, it's been getting us some kind of flicker of result.
Run-out results.
Run-out result is something. Understanding that Nigeria did not even attend the Nations Cup ever since we won it in 2013. And we went back after 3 outings, and when we returned back to the Nations Cup, we got 3rd. Super Eagles usually used to punch calculators anytime we were playing qualifiers because it was always difficult. And the man has made it almost seamless in qualifying Nigeria for the World Cup, for the Nations Cup. That is a little bit of progress. And if he still insists on using foreign-based players as against home-based players, then he refusing to stay in Nigeria is understandable because the foreign-based players are not domiciled in Nigeria.
But you would agree that there's a reason why it might look like these foreign-based players choose to be that way. Let's talk about infrastructure, for example, training facilities. Maybe that's another reason why. However, just like Mr. Abati said, one of the other
it's difficult for me to justify, training the Super Eagles by remote control.
No, but the Super Eagles are not always in Nigeria.
Well, how about developing home-based players?
Exactly.
Some of those boys that are in Europe are doing well. Some of them were discovered here.
In Nigeria.
And that's why I said it's not just about training for championships. It's also about helping to build, the football,
infrastructure here in Nigeria. That is understandable.
In Nigeria.
But before we go, quickly, let's actually say for those very insufferable Arsenal fans, let's say that for the first time in 18 months, Arsenal finally got something to smile about, and not just smile about, something to actually brag about. And that was a huge win against an arch rival of Arsenal, Manchester United yesterday at the Emirates. The fans were so vociferous. They were shouting, and you could hear them in the rafters literally screaming their heads out. They had never seen Arsenal play that well. And for those who have, because we all know 1 or 2 people who have been supporting Arsenal and have been mocked by the fact that Arsenal are a team that never gives results and gives heartaches. Yesterday was massive and a consolation.
Well, it was a great moment for Mikel Arteta.
Yes. Yeah.
This is his first major win.
Yes.
Since he took over Arsenal, there were flashes of improvement. But this is his first major win.
Yes.
And I think much thanks should go to Nicolas Pepe, who was the main playmaker.
Yeah, the Ivorian.
Matchmaker for the Arsenal. And then, of course, the absence of Pogba in the Man U lineup was felt. I don't know whether you think...
Pogba has, in my opinion, has refused to play for us. Manchester United. He earns close to about £300,000 a week. And yet, he finds a reason not to always show up week in, week out. How Manchester United can stomach that beats my imagination.
Thank you very much, Aaron. That's all on the news headlines.